5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to here, we're going to do 1 here, 3, 4, 5. And then we'll go to the closing sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is almost like in the beginning, go into that corner, chop, poke, take the sword, go behind, lift the knee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we go over the top. And then we're going to go this way. 1. Here's that sort of the repeat that we did earlier that I mentioned. Goes here. 1, 2, 3, 4. But instead of going to this position, I'm going to step up and then put the sword there, brush the knee and push, take the hand down, go to this corner, and step up. That's the end of the form. So at the end, I just kind of just ran through it because the first section was just for learning those sections, and you can actually focus on that. And then the rear part of it, I've actually gone through that a couple of times in the other videos. So I focus more from the beginning to the middle of the form so that you can have a section to work on to solidify the sections. If that's helpful, you can always revisit those videos in order to just work on that section. If it's timeline, then you can actually extract that and just focus on that. So, Lucien's been working on the timeline of certain sections of the form. So even if you don't have the exact timeline or the section that you want, you could just look at a piece of that and just go back and forth in that area. The form's fairly long. It does get a little bit more confusing in the beginning, and then as you start to rethink it, it gets even more confusing because then you start to think too much about it. But you have to go through that process in order to sort it out. And after several months of practicing the form, it'll start to make sense. There is a pattern. That pattern's not easy to identify. Even after the form is memorized, it's not easy to sectionalize it because someone teaching it, sometimes I would even get mixed up, depending on where I am. So, and if you face the opposite side of the room, you could totally mix it all up. So try to practice your form starting in the same direction each time until you have it down fairly well, and then you can start to, go through the form without actually referencing the walls. So, Lucien, any questions?
No, I had some comments just, thanking you, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, a lot of that's sequence. So going through the sequence is one thing. But when you slice, a waist cut is a waist cut. A neck cut or shoulder level is shoulder level cut. You have your slices that come across. That's the diagonal flyings. Then you have the vertical neutral positions like this. That's a neutral position. The diagonal flying is this. You have your cross step where you step down like this or like this. This is pretty unique to, this Tai Chi form does have a lot of variety of technique. Some broadswords that you'll learn even in Kung Fu, some of them are really fairly simple. And when you go through these movements, you'll see how intricate some of these combination of movements are. So Tai Chi does have some intricate patterns and complexity in the execution of the technique. So it is a pretty valuable tool just to develop coordination, spatial awareness, and control of your appendages. Your arms and legs have to work together at your skeleton. And the framework of those movements are actually related to your body. So your appendicular skeletal structure is really moving in a coordinated fashion in order to develop that rhythm. So controlling the slice is very important. Like if you do any type of culinary work at home, if you're using a knife to slice and dice and julienne vegetables, it does take some control and dexterity. Sharp knives are better than dull knives because dull knives you kind of force it. Sharp knives are really something that's very practical for using, especially in the kitchen. I do a bit of cooking and I cut things with, so I really like very, very sharp knives. And believe it or not, I very seldom cut my hand because when you use a knife, how your fingers are shaped and how you use your fingers as a guide actually control it. So you're never really sticking. No, you should not hold things with the tips of your finger and try to cut like that. You need to use the backs of your fingers as a guide because that keeps the blade from ever touching your hands. So the same thing happens here. The blade never really approaches where your hands are going simply because it knows not to be there. That's something that don't do it too fast in the beginning because you really won't know where your arms are, whether in the right place, especially if you're watching the video and not paying attention to your limbs while you're going through it. So, we can pick it up again, go through it one more time. So remember, don't hold the apparatus too tight. The tendency is to hold it because you're afraid to drop it. But, you just need to capture the handle and don't overwork the grip. If you're holding it too tight, you actually can't maneuver simply because you have tension, too much tension in the body too. Just work with balance. Let the sword work through the balancing of the hand. You don't really need to hold it with a deathly grip because it's not going to go out of your hand unless you're moving so fast that you're going to drop it. But if you have dexterity and feeling in the movement, you'll know that the movement and the apparatus is in your hand and you're controlling it. It's really kind of a fingertip control. And we're here. And I think I timed out, so now I spin around, and I come around to here, and I go to here, and I sign out. Okay, so that's closing. That's not the closing in the form, but hope you